Welcome to the Intuitive Therapist Podcast with Janis R. Cohen, therapist, clairvoyant, empath, and medium. Listen in as she takes a no-nonsense deep dive into real human struggles and how to resolve them. Janis will share channeled information from her spirit guide team, as well as the angels and archangels, to help you master your emotional, physical, financial, and spiritual destiny. And now, Janis R. Cohen.
Hey y'all, this is Janis Cohen, the Intuitive Therapist, here on the Intuitive Therapist Podcast for yet another week of some good wisdom. Now, the energies in May still kind of tough, but I think overall we're kind of coming out of it. I think with this full moon, that by the time you listen to this, it will be the day of the full moon. And what we know about full moons is that they shine a light on things that are not seen. And so it's highly likely that you're going to be pretty emotional. It's highly likely that you're going to all of a sudden notice things that you didn't. And that may be hard. And so I'm just going to invite you to give yourself some grace. We all need that. Boy, these last couple of months have just kicked everybody's butt. So you are not alone, and I wanted to tell you that before we get into today's topic, which is a really, I think to me, a really powerful one, which is how to become unconditioned from your programming. And this was fascinating with what came through about this. And my hope is that you'll listen to this with a student ear, with a learner's ear, so that you can really uncover what belongs to you and what does not, and let that go. So we're diving in today a little deeper than what other people tend to do, into really, I think, one of the most transformative topics that we can explore together: how to release your deepest conditioning, the stuff that in your conscious awakening you're not aware of, but you just do by habit. And you don't even think about it. It's kind of what you do. But I'm asking you to start to become highly aware of the things that you do and the things that you think and the values that you hold and the rules that you have about how things need to be or shouldn't be, because this is conditioning. So my goal today is to help you understand how you're living from other people's conditioning, and invite you to be able to switch over to your own independent beliefs and thoughts and desires, so that you can live from your own truth, not what the world handed you. Now, if you're here, you're likely somebody who's felt the tug between who you think you're supposed to be and who your soul keeps whispering that you truly are. I know we have all felt this in 24 and in 2025. Y'all, we are being pulled so strongly to speak up, to stand in our certainty, to have boundaries, to live from our truth, to speak truth. And today we're going to unpack how we got so far from that whisper and how to return to it step by step. So let's get into it. Now, conditioning is the set of beliefs, rules, and identities that we absorb, often unconsciously, from the people around us, the culture we live in, and the experiences that have shaped us. And it's not always bad. In fact, some conditioning teaches us how to survive. But the kind that we're talking about today is the really deep, limiting kind. The beliefs that keep us small and quiet and disconnected from our power. And we all have these. There's not a person in the world as a human being that does not have these limiting conditioning. So think of conditioning like layers of clothing you didn't choose, but you've worn for so long you forgot what your own skin feels like underneath. We all have experienced this, and it's part of being human and having this human experience, right? And we also, program this conditioning into our human experience before we incarnated, so that we would learn how to eliminate it. I know that sounds really weird, but the bottom line is we've done this constantly. Before we incarnated, we did a pre-planning. Everything's planned out. And so we did this on purpose for us to be positioned in a place to face what we need to let go in order to become the next level version, right? So we had to learn how to eliminate this and choose our own thoughts and beliefs. And I'll tell you this, that's really the name of the game in this life, is for you to be able to come back to your truth, right? Because you were born in truth. We just became tainted and influenced by what's external, and that we forgot our own thoughts and beliefs. And so I'm inviting you today to consider what it is that you truly believe, not because your parents believed it or it was done generationally as a tradition, but does it really fit with who your soul knows that you are? But how do you know what you've been conditioned around when it seems like it's literally so much a part of what you believe and who you are? I think that's really the $1 million question. How can you delineate between what your truth is and what beliefs and thoughts belong to somebody else? So my mind is pretty simple. You take a look at the generations before you. You notice how they lived their lives, what they said, how they handled things emotionally, how they talked about money, health, opportunity, relationships, men, women, sexuality, identity, work, animals, self care, self concept, and limitations. And I could go on and on and on and on with this list. All you have to do is look back and watch and recall how the people before you acted, how they decided, how they spoke, what they chose, how they held themselves back, the things that they told you you weren't capable of, or that you shouldn't do, or what you needed and what you didn't need. That is all conditioning. I can look back on my life and pinpoint where my mom and dad both limited me, not because they're bad, but because there were their own limitations that they put on me. And every parent does this. So no parent is perfect, right? So the way the previous generations operated is what you're conditioned around. And when I think about the generations, like I said, they came before me, I became conditioned to value some really great things, right? The conditioning isn't all bad. Like keeping good relationships with my family members, being kind, learning how to communicate, being open and being giving, respecting elders, honoring religious traditions, and taking on certain values like compassion and patience. That's a hard one. I'm still working on that, y'all. Kindness, the value of marriage, kids, family, the value of understanding, loving others, the value of exploration of self. Now, my parents didn't teach me that directly, but because of what they didn't teach me, I developed this idea of and the value of I want to know who I am, who I truly am. And that's what I teach people how to do. Get to know who they truly are. Most people think they know themselves because they're automatically living. And this is the conditioning. That's my point. Now, both of my parents and their parents did not come from much. In fact, I had a friend that I used to live next to, and she used to say, we weren't poor, we were po. We didn't even have the OR. We had less than nothing. That's my father had that. And my mother had some resources, but in terms of other values like being parented well and having a positive mother figure, she didn't have that. So we were taught about money in a way that caused us to necessarily respect it, right? I guarantee the majority of you, people who are in my generation, in your 50s, the previous generation came from the Depression era. Money was scary, like it wasn't trustworthy. So you had to be scared that you wouldn't have enough and you lived in lack. And so even though my dad worked hard and he did very well, there's always a concern, the energy of that, right? And my parents didn't teach me to use my voice. Rather, I was taught to comply and not cause trouble. Follow the rules, Janis. Follow the rules. And you know what? I'm not a rule follower. I don't ever want to be a rule follower, right? I'm not going to jail, but I'm also not following rules. This is my fucking show, right? This is my fucking life. And I invite you to think about your life in that way, that independently, right? I wasn't taught to explore who I was or to explore the world or take risks. To my parents, especially my dad, God bless him, in heaven, the world was not a good, safe place, and happiness was fleeting. That's what life was about. Most of life was bad, scary, unsafe, and every now and there might be happy moments. That's how my dad lived. He was raised in the Depression era. His dad was an alcoholic who often beat him and his brothers and sister up, and his mom. And they ended up homeless many, many times. So, but so we learn a lot from our parents. So without our permission and without malicious intent, 100%, our parents or whoever raised us did the best they could with the abilities, gifts, talents that they had. And at some point in our adult lives and in our journey of becoming aware of who we are, we get to decide what we believe and what we don't. We get to decide what conditioning our soul truly aligns with and what it doesn't. We get the opportunity to choose, right? Now, let me break this down for you. Here are some of the deepest, most common forms of conditioning we carry. And I want to invite you to see which of these resonates with you. Maybe you can even add more to what I'm about to share with you. I guarantee you can. And I invite you to sit down and write these things down. How else have you been conditioned, even in the micro ways of how a parent looked at you when you did something? That uh-oh feeling in your gut simply because it was something that your parents didn't do or they poo-pooed. But it didn't really belong to you because in your mind you're like, what do I need to worry about this for? Whatever you question, that's also another indicator that your conditioning doesn't really fit with who you are. So I really want you to think about what rules and beliefs you've been conditioned with that you now realize that's total bullshit and unhelpful. And it's really okay. You're not disrespecting your parents if you say, when you did this or when you raised me, it was not mine and you forced it on me. And that's not okay. But you have to also understand on the flip side to give your parents grace, even if they were shitty to you. You can say, you did the best you could. I didn't like your behavior. I didn't like how you treated me. In fact, there are parts of you maybe I hate, or there are parts of you that I love. And I get it. You did the best you could with the resources you had, and you didn't know enough to think twice or to choose for yourself. Now, you have to pardon me. I don't know if you can hear the kind of workers in the background, but we've got all sorts of construction going on where we live. So here's the number one way that we tend to be conditioned, and it's around our worth. You have to pardon, they are drilling, so you're going to have to deal with it, right? This is how life works. So this is around worth and productivity. You're only valuable if you're producing something, right? Think about this. When we talk about values, it's what makes sense to the people before you, right? You're only valuable if you produce something. And as a kid, there are many, many kids out there, right? Young adults, even our age, who remember this. It's like your parent would only give you praise or acknowledge you if you did well in school, if you were recognized, if you achieved. So that's the only way you could get your love, the value of love. Maybe it's the rule of working hard is the only way to make a lot of money. And for many, many millionaires, that's not true. Balance, having fun, having a really lovely relationship with money, knowing that it's just a tool. And that living well has nothing to do with the tool of money. It has everything to do with the faith that you have and the safety you feel as it relates to connecting to source. Money is a tool. Spirituality is a tool. Food is a tool. Your body is a tool. It's just all of that. So the second one is love. Love is conditional. You have to earn it. You got to be nice to get love. You can't be who you need to be. You got to shrink to get love. You got to people please and sacrifice who you are to get love. Being worthy of healthy, good love relationship is for just a chosen few. All men are bad. All women are bad. You're not lovable for some reason or another. People are untrustworthy. You don't get to be loved simply because you're good enough. You have to earn it, right? These are all the rules that are connected with the value of love. Why can't it be that just because you exist, you're worthy, you're deserving? Who of you out there actually believes that? It's actually true. Just simply because you exist, you are worthy of love, of everything you want. A third one is success is external. So it looks like titles and money and marriage and kids or being liked or driving the car, having the fancy home. No one teaches us that success it's not only subjective, right? How you define success, but it's an inside job. However you define success for you. Like just a few days ago, I hopped on Instagram and I talked about that if you're seeking happiness, that's the wrong thing to seek. It's not the wrong thing, but it's not going to lead you to the ultimate feeling of what you want. And really, most of us, I would say 99.99%, probably 100%, most of us want the sense of freedom and peace. In fact, when you feel peace, you have freedom. And perhaps maybe they're interchangeable. But we're not really seeking happy, because happiness is fleeting. It's a moment, and then it goes away. But peace, you can sustain that. There are things that you can do, how you eat, what you say to yourself, how you use your body, how you meditate, how you exercise, whatever peace is. You can keep doing those things. The fourth is emotions or weakness, especially if you're male or raised to keep it together. My husband and I talk about this all the time. Men, and especially men from certain cultures, you're raised to not show emotions. You're raised to not share how you feel because you're supposed to be able to handle it all. And that's just bullshit. It's just bullshit. I highly respect men who are able to be in their masculine and do what they feel like they need to do, but also be able to share where they are. Like, being guy is really hard. We have pressures on us that make it very, very difficult for us to have, to not be in our strength, to have human moments. There should be more discussion around supporting our men, right? To be able to emotionally express themselves. A fifth one, who you are is not good enough. Holy shit, how many of us have that? I carried that feeling. I carried the belief that I was a fuck up and a failure for most of my life. And you overperform, you overgive, you overfunction. You try to overcompensate. I did that for many, many years until I found my value. And I was like, you know what? I am enough. I am enough. And if people around me don't believe that, not my problem. Well, not my problem. I can just sit back and go, I feel sorry for you that you expend energy to see me as not good enough, but not my monkey, not my circus, right? Now, it is really, really hard to unlearn this stuff because it's not just a thought, like it's a nervous system pattern. It's wired to your identity. So unlearning it means stepping into uncertainty. And that can feel like a threat to the very survival strategies that once kept you safe. So the work here is to really take inventory of what you value and what you don't, and how all of that makes you feel. For example, if you decided to abandon the idea that that if you spoke up, you would be safe. If you didn't, hold on, let me fix this. Here, let me give you this example. If you abandon the thought that you got to play small in order to be accepted, and you're like, you know what, no, I'm going to be as loud and proud as I want, how does that feel in your body? Does that feel good? Does that feel a little scary, but good, right? So we're testing what we believe to be true. So the work here is really take inventory of what you value and what you don't. And it's a great first step. So don't forget your ego. Oh, y'all. Your ego is going to feel threatened big time. And it's going to fight to keep you safe by telling you, don't do it, don't go there. You know, we've done this well for so long. Don't challenge me. But your soul knows what you need to let go of so that you can fly. And isn't it time you listen to your heart instead of your brain? Now, here's how we become conditioned. And it may seem simple to you that you kind of know, but I'm going to share what came through. We're born with intuition and authenticity. We are born in our truth. We are born in the light and the likeness of God. That is innocence. When we look at itty bitty infants and we say, oh my God, look how sweet, look how tiny little fingers and the nostrils and the little feet are, right? You get into that pure sense of spirit of God, and then life happens, right? And maybe somebody laughed, like when you think about it, maybe somebody laughed when you sang when you were a little girl. And maybe your anger was shamed. Maybe you got praised only when you achieved something. Maybe people in your life only valued you because you had money, or you're physically attractive, or you were good at something that they weren't, and so they exploited you. Do you see? In moments, we can become conditioned to become or not to become. So your brain said, it is not safe to be me because this person who I'm around so much and who I believe I value didn't approve. I could tell you with me, out of all the kids in my family, I was the one that had the big mouth. I spoke up, and that was not okay in my family. I cannot tell you how many times I was told, Janis, be quiet. Don't cause trouble. And so I remember kind of carrying this. And this is part of my unbecoming, is to let go of this message of, if I speak up, I'm going to get in trouble, and that I don't have the right to use my voice. This is what I also teach people. I teach women how to honor themselves and their voice without the guilt and the resistance. This is getting rid of conditioning. So, if this is triggering you in some way, I'm happy for you. This is exactly what needs to happen. And either by this podcast or the experience of the full moon in general, you will be triggered to look at your stuff. You're going to be triggered to look at what isn't working anymore, the habits you're practicing that belong to other people, the shit you're considering normal that isn't normal. So your ego is going to say, it's not safe to be me, and I only matter based on whether others believe I am or how they think of me. So who I truly am isn't good enough. We all carry that belief at some point or another because of what we've been through. And your body agreed. And it began practicing hiding. It began being scared to speak up. It began pushing down your truth. So you started to adapt. You smiled instead of spoke up. You got straight A's. God forbid you get less than that. You didn't cry because crying wasn't acceptable. You had to be tough. You couldn't show your emotions, whether you were male or female. You performed because the only way to get love in your family, because your dad was a hard ass or your mom was a hard ass, is that if you didn't achieve, you weren't doing good enough. You weren't good enough. You walked on eggshells because you couldn't predict what is going to tick off one of your parents. Maybe you lived in a substance abuse household. Maybe whatever it was that you couldn't predict when were you going to trigger one of your parents or guardians. You allowed yourself to be used and exploited in all the ways simply because your mind said, just get it over with and then find your safety. This is all conditioning. And you may be saying to yourself, holy shit, I had no idea that that's what that was. Or how do I know if I was conditioned in a negative way? How do I know what to release? Now, I'm going to talk to you about that because that's a huge, important question. You're going to know in huge part by the fact that you look back on it and you go, oh God, that didn't feel good. Or I hated that. I hated when they looked at me that way. I hated when I was told to be quiet and that kids only need to be seen and not heard. I hated that I couldn't speak up. I hated it. I didn't like it. It didn't feel good. That, right? So some internal signs, in addition to that, is you had constant self-doubt and inner criticism. You cultivated that. Didn't trust yourself. You felt guilty for saying no because you were pressured to always comply and agree and do what you were told. You felt off, but you didn't know why, and you couldn't honor that, because if you honored that, then you'd get in trouble. You burn out from perfectionism. It wasn't tolerated in your home that you couldn't be a high achiever. So secretly, maybe you became depressed, or you began to use substances, or you acted out sexually, or you became depressed, whatever it is, right? There's a fear of disappointing others. Because if you let other people down, you'd be rejected. So you abandoned who you were and took on the persona of who you needed to be. Maybe you, again, this fear of being seen and heard. Most of us have that. I struggled with that most of my life because I was told that my voice, I couldn't speak, right? And in different, it's not just parents, but it's just different things, teachers, partners, my truth wasn't valued, wasn't good enough, wasn't necessary. And I help women overcome that. Maybe you have just lived life with worry and nervousness. And you're like, I don't know why I've been nervous or worried all my life. And then you look back and you think, oh my God, I was never taught how to cultivate safety. I never felt safe. Neither of my parents created a life where I was safe in any way. So those are some internal things. External things, maybe you're repeating the same relationship patterns. Maybe you choose safety over alignment in your truth. Maybe you have everything, but you still feel empty. Money doesn't solve everything. It may allow you to indulge and pay your bills, but it definitely does not cause happiness. And maybe hiding parts of yourself to be accepted are some things that you do on a regular basis. And you go home and it's exhausting because you pretended so much that you were somebody that you weren't. All this is conditioning. Now, these are all soul signals, right? Your truth isn't gone. I want you to hear this. Just because you've pretended so long and cultivated habits that have worked externally to others does not mean who you are is gone. It's never gone, because you're going to feel him, her, they, them. You're going to feel that. It's just buried underneath layers that were really never yours to carry. And this means that, again, the majority of our parents and guardians, they weren't malicious or intentionally cruel when they raised us the way they raised us. They were just resourceless to cultivate an opportunity mindset, a growth and love mindset, and simply raised us the way they were conditioned to raise us, based on their own fears and limitations and how they were raised. So you can probably see where your conditioning stems from and what you've been conditioned to believe based on the personality and behaviors of your parents and guardians. And this is where you get to begin to separate yourself from your conditioning. Now, I wanted to share a formula with you that would allow you, because at this point I've just given you information. I always like to give steps. I always like to give practical moves that you can make to really help you ingest and experience these lessons. So here is where we pivot from awareness into action. And this process blends neuroscience, kind of a little bit of storytelling, some NLP, to rewire what no longer serves you. So it's a 5-step pattern that came through. And the first step is to simply, this may sound so corny, but it's so valuable, is to recognize the pattern, right? When I first started to talk, I said, we as kids, like, you're born with intuition. You're born knowing what feels right and what doesn't feel right. That's not something that ever goes away. You may choose to not listen to it, but who you are intuitively is always there. So you recognize the pattern and use this phrase. This is huge. Listen to this. This part of you that you know is not from you. It doesn't feel right, but you may not know what to do with just yet. It just doesn't feel like it's you. You say, I see you. And your story I learned. And you're not who I am. It's pretty powerful, isn't it? I see you. You're a story I learned, not who I am. And that allows you to kind of separate what your soul knows is truth from what you learned. And I want to invite you to kind of journal on some questions. So each step I'm also going to give you some journal prompts. So you might want to go back and write these down and do some work around them. First question is, where did I first learn this identity of who I have come to believe I am? It's a huge question. Huge question. And likely, if you did a timeline of your life, you'd say, this was reinforced here, and it was reinforced here, and here, and here. And so how could I not believe that that's who I was or who I am? The next is, what did I believe it kept me safe from? Keeping this identity kept me safe from what? Angry parents, right? What consequence? Who gave this to me? And it's okay to blame your parents. You could blame your parents and you can blame them effectively. There are two ways to blame. One is they made me feel like X, Y, and Z, but because of that, this is blaming effectively, I became this. I became stronger, wiser. I became the opposite, right? And the fourth question is, what does my soul, not my ego, tell me about who I am? The first and fourth questions are so powerful. I invite you literally every day to write on them. You could ask yourself the same question. Where did I first learn this identity of who I've come to believe I am? The other questions, and what does my soul, not my ego, tell me about who I am? You're going to be able to answer it because you know. The words I tell my clients all the time, I don't tolerate the three words, I don't know. They don't belong in therapy in our work together because you do. It's a default. You know, if you sat with yourself, you would know. Recognizing that, it was a learned thing gives you the power to unlearn it and to disown it. And becoming who you're meant to become involves disowning many, many aspects of who you are. And that feels weird and scary, and it's just part of the human experience. Step 2 is feeling it fully. Now, conditioning lives in the body. So you already feel it anyway. Like, I know just even talking about this, I could feel it, whether it's in my stomach or my throat, my back, like I feel it. My body carries it still, even when I've done a lot of the clearing. And your body does too. So you get to say aloud, I allow myself to feel what I've been suppressing. Now, this can be tough because all of a sudden, once you open that, people call it a Pandora's box of truth, and you get to actually give yourself the permission to feel your feelings instead of shoving them down. You may be looking at feelings that you've been conditioned not to have or that weren't acceptable. I know so many people who don't know how to express anger because they weren't allowed to. They were either in survival mode or their parents said, no, you're not allowed to express anger. It's unacceptable. You don't have the right to be angry, right? So many people struggle with that. I allow myself to feel what I've been suppressing. Or maybe it's your own sense of self that's different. Maybe you have psychic gifts. Maybe you're gay and you haven't come out. Maybe you're trans. Maybe you're this. Maybe you're that. And you knew that the way that you were raised, the container would never allow that. So you had to suppress your attraction for the same sex or whatever it is. Do you see now? Let the anger rise. Let the grief move. There's no judgment. In your body, your job is to create a sense of safety. This is called nervous system regulation. And when we breathe into, here's just an example, right? Because this is where freedom begins. You can breathe, and I'm going to talk about this as I continue here, but just one example is you breathe deeply. Breathe into your lower back ribs and just keep breathing so deeply, slowly and deeply, that your body starts to calm and regulate itself. So as quickly as you can, honor your parents, guardians for the best efforts. Even though you're like, God bless. Ooh, I'm really looking at things and I can see that my raising was so restricted. That pisses me off. Okay, it could piss you off. And then you get to choose how to live your life differently. It's that quick. So even if they were shitty parents, they did their best. They did what they knew. Now that you're aware of how you feel about it all, and you may need to write about this, right, over and over and over again, until you're able to get the anger out and your little self says, okay, we're kind of done being angry. Now, adult self, I need you to fix this. Your next step is to shift from staying in the feelings for too long, get into cultivating a new identity on your own. And this is step 3. This is what we call interrupting the old story. So you want to use phrases like this, because when you're creating a sense of safety in your nervous system, you're regulating your body's engine to slow down and relax. And then there's this other piece of dealing with your child state, the part of you that does not feel safe. These are 2 huge pieces: regulating your nervous system and helping your little self feel safe and trust you. So you say, okay, little self, I might say little Janis, you know what, that was then, and we know that. And this is now, and I'm going to choose for us something that feels really good to us. And you may say, I release what's not mine to carry. I have done so much work on myself, I'm aware of what belongs to my mom, what belongs to my dad or my siblings, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, nope, not taking it on anymore. I understand that's yours. I'm letting it go. So I realize that you may say something like this. I realize that my mother, father believed this, and I choose not to believe it anymore. Or that was the past. I am my own best creation. I let go of whatever expectations, beliefs, and pressures my parents, society, culture, etc. put on me, and I decide and choose to live my life my way and to identify myself in the truest way possible, because that's how I want to live my life, from a place of love and strength, not lack and inadequacy. Wow. You get to choose. That's the whole point of this. Conditioning can end the moment you choose to be different. Visualize putting down a heavy backpack when you think about all this stuff, setting it on fire with all of the limitations and beliefs and fears and worries and things you weren't given permission to do, be, or have. Set those on fire, all those limitations, and watch it turn into dust. See yourself turning around, walking away from them. They're not yours anymore. Step 4, replace it with your soul's truth. Ask yourself this. Work on these every day as well. What does my truth say? My truth about anything. Whether it's choosing this to eat, or agreeing to this, or not doing this, or starting this. What dreams do I have that my soul needs to realize? That I've been either too scared or worried or not given permission to, or judged for having? What beliefs do I decide to believe about myself that will empower me? If I wasn't afraid, listen to this one. If I wasn't afraid and I knew I wouldn't fail, what would I do with my life? Who would I be? What chances would I take? Big one. Use these identity statements, right? I am safe to be me all of the time. All of me is good. It is safe to outgrow what I have outlived. I am fully supported to be my true self, and Only God needs to support me in doing that, and me. Whoever I am is worthy of love, safety, and abundance. I am good enough. I matter. I am safe. I am in charge of me. Truth is magnetic. And the more you speak it, the more your nervous system believes it. Because as you speak truth, your body recognizes it because it's your soul that's speaking. Final step, reinforce it with repetition and ritual. Repetition rewires, create daily micro practices like this. Have a morning mantra that feels real for you. But the only way your mantras work to influence you is that your system is regulated. So I want you to first start with the deep breathing to regulate your nervous system. If your nervous system is jacked up, I don't give a shit what other people tell you to say. It won't work. Because your nervous system is going to actively, physically reject it. And it's like you're just yammering. So get your body safe and calm. Talk to your little self, whatever age he or she, they, them are. Let's say, look, let's just breathe for a second. I know we feel really, really anxious. Too anxious because the idea of calming down makes our system go apeshit. And we're going to just breathe. No requirements beyond that. Just breath. Just breathing, right? The method that I talked to you about, breathing deep into the lower back ribs, that's pretty deep. You just keep doing that. No other expectations. And then when you get to a point where that has become your system is like, okay, I like this feels good, then you can get into mantras. You can hold your hand on your heart before you sleep and just breathe and feel the heartbeat and talk to your heart. Your body tells you everything. You can do affirmations in the mirror, and you look in your eyes and you say, oh, sweet Janis, I love you. I got you. I got you. You're safe. I'm going to choose for us choices that feel so good. I put my name in there, but that is how I talk to myself sometimes, right? Now, you get to anchor the new identity in because who you truly are is just waiting for you to claim him, her, they, them. Okay? Now, when you get to a point where you're like, okay, I am seeing all of this. I'm letting this piece go. I'm letting that piece go. I'm taking this piece on. I'm getting my body comfortable and calm. I'm saying certain things. I would like to invite you to consider being able to say these mantras on a regular basis. If none of these fit, develop your own. I am no longer available for roles that silence my truth. I am no longer available for people in my life who silence my truth. My worth is inherent, not earned. I am worthy just by being me. I'm worthy of everything just because I exist. Simply because I exist. I honor what's real over what's expected. I trust my intuition. I live life from my heart and my gut. It is safe to be seen even when I doubt myself. I can never lose when I show up in my truth. Who I am belongs to me, and how it affects others does not. Okay? I trust myself more than the noise around me. Everything is always working out for me. Everyday miracles occur for me. I trust that whatever I want is on its way to me now. I don't know how, but it's always on time. I trust myself fully and only listen. Again, I'm repeating this one. I listen to my heart and intuition to make decisions about myself and my life. I do not listen to other people. So repeat these daily. Write them down. Write new ones down. Speak them out loud until your body says, yes, this is me now. I can choose for myself 100% of the time. I get to say no, right? So if you walk away with anything today, let it be this. You are not your conditioning. You are not the scared child who adapted to survive. You are not the version of yourself that was designed to please or prove or be perfect. You're whole already and always. And now you have a path back to your truth. Because your truth is not too much. It is your superpower. Okay? I wish you a blessed day, a wonderful week. Always live intuitively. Share this with somebody who you feel like it could help, because we all need to get that reinforcement that who we are is perfect and fine.
Thanks for listening to The Intuitive Therapist. If you like what you heard, the best compliment you can give us is to share this podcast with a friend. And be sure to give us some stars and a favorable review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in.